Today we explore an exciting theme. The future of medicine is here. In one place, the power of your voice with Mike Murphy.
Hey, welcome everybody, and welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Murphy, and we got a super powerful show for you today. Have you heard about stem cells? Do you know what they are, where they come from, and what do they do? Well, today you're going to learn all about them because joining me today is the CEO, shareholder of a company down here in Medellin, Colombia called BioXcellerator, and they specialize in growing stem cells and then providing them to clients so they can optimize their health. Joining me now, Eric Stoffers. Eric, welcome to the show.
Mike Murphy, good to be with you, man. Thanks.
Good to see you, man. So, why stem cells? How'd you get into it?
So the short story is I became enamored in the science, but the little bit of longer version, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I have no medical background.
And neither am I.
I know enough about stem cells to be dangerous at this point, so I can talk with some expertise, but have absolutely no medical background. But so for me, I was in my real estate career. I cut my teeth in the restaurant business for a long time through college, as we just started talking about before the show. And then in my real estate career, I had just taken over the CEO position of a real estate investment trust. And so I was the CEO of this REIT, and I had a friend in real estate as well that was selling a major property in Cabo San Lucas. And so it was this big resort property. It was about 300 hectares on beachfront, and they were really getting beat up on the price for the offers that were coming in, and they were selling them to or getting offers from Starwood and some big conglomerates, but really bad offers. So he just came to me and said, "Hey, Eric, I know you're in real estate. You have a lot of contacts. You've got some prowess in the field. So what do you think I should do? Help me market this thing." So I said, "Hey, listen, we're here in this border state. We're in Arizona, and all these border states like Texas, California, Arizona, what's happening a lot is medical tourism, right? So you have all these people that are going across the border into Mexico, and they're going there for dental work or eyeglasses or
even cancer treatment too.
Tons of that as well. Yeah, you see a lot of that. So this was a hot button in Arizona. And so I said, hey, why don't we market to some medical tourism providers? Maybe those guys can take down this property. So that's really how it all transpired into eventually getting in contact with a group of stem cell scientists. So we were pitching this property to plastic surgeons, and we came across this group of stem cell scientists that had a very strong interest in taking their technology out of the laboratory and implementing it, and they had to do that in an offshore location. So this was very attractive to them. That particular property didn't work for them. That group didn't end up purchasing the property. But what did happen is over the next several months, this group kept kind of pinging me on the side and saying, "Hey, Eric, I really enjoyed our time together. Your questions were good. We could tell you had an interest, but we really kind of need a business guy. We need a little bit of help here. We're a bunch of scientists, but honestly, we don't know what the hell we're doing in business. So, we kind of need your help." And so that's what kind of got my wheels turning into like, oh, hey, maybe I'll help these guys out. Fast forward, quite a few months. I did a lot of University of YouTube digging into stem cells, and then I really kind of started wondering why the hell is this not available in the United States? At the exact same time, I was in a relationship with somebody that was in the pharmaceutical business, and she was coming home telling me these horrific stories about what was going on in the medical field. And so it was just that kind of combination.
Horrific, like people being treated poorly?
Not necessarily treated poorly.
Serious illnesses that weren't getting cured.
That were really just being masked. The symptoms were just being masked, and these people were getting worse, and sometimes their demise was because of the pharmaceuticals they were on.
Right. Medicine is third leading cause of death in America, FYI.
Crazy. Yeah. So it was that kind of combination that made me think, you know what, I'm an entrepreneur. I've had several entrepreneurial endeavors, some good, some really terrible. But I was in the mindset of taking on another venture. And so I started BioXcellerator.
Why Medellin?
So initially, I had absolutely no interest in going to Colombia. I was like most of the other gringos out there.
Scared to death.
Scared to death, exactly. I saw Netflix and Narcos, and all I knew was Pablo Escobar and violence. But really fast forward into the three things that we were looking for when we decided to implement a stem cell clinic. Number one, we knew that we could not have the best technology and we could not implement it or administer it in the United States. So we had to go offshore. So being forced offshore, we were looking for three things. We were looking for great regulation that allowed us to do the high-level stem cell. We were looking for a good medical infrastructure, so lots of hospitals, lots of a really robust system. And then also the doctors had to be very proficient. And so that really narrowed the field. But I was still looking in Mexico. I really knew that we were going to be marketing to mostly Americans. By the way, when I use the term gringo, it's very affectionately taken here.
I'm with you.
They call me that here all the time, and I've become to be accustomed to it. So anyway, so I was looking in Mexico, and here's what happened. It was really unfortunate, but I didn't have any experience in the stem cell business. We didn't already have patients that we had helped, which we do now. We have thousands of patients that we've helped. We didn't have a recognizable brand. We didn't have doctors behind us. So it was very early stage. And so I understand why I had to start at the bottom of the meeting hierarchy, essentially. But what I did is I was going into the COFI-PRE, which is the equivalent of the FDA in Mexico. And so I was going to these very low-level meetings, and the thing that happened, Mike, that was a real turnoff is nobody ever asked me, how many jobs are you creating in Mexico? How many Mexican people are you helping? How many people around the world are you helping? What technology are you bringing? How much money are you investing? None of that was ever asked. It was always a handout. How much is it? How much are you giving me to get to the next meeting? And I knew that was never going to stop.
Right.
And I had a long ladder to climb to get to the top, to where we really started making some decisions. So that really turned my attention away from Mexico pretty quickly. And so I started looking in South America, and I was looking for those three things: the regulation in the hospitals and the doctors. And so that narrowed the field again. And in Panama stuck out that they had two of the three that were really strong. The doctors, not as much. You really had to import doctors there. Okay. But they had a good hospital system and good regulation. And then I started looking at Chile and Argentina and Colombia. And Colombia was last on the list. But the more and more I looked into it, especially with the doctors and the medical system, it's an incredible, you live here, it's an incredible medical system. I get all of my treatment done here. I wait. I don't do it when I'm in the States. I wait till I'm here. The treatment is incredible. But the regulation is also fair. So,
and for you guys listening and watching, I have a doctor supervised retreat center here. And of course, Eric's in the stem cell business. And so what's interesting is in 2002, the World Health Organization did a survey of all the countries in the world for healthcare. At that time, the United States ranked 37th in the world, and Colombia was 22nd. And I think they just did it again. I think we're down to 17th, and America is like 54th. So, and most of the doctors here are American trained. The hospitals are first class. The cost is 70-80% less than the States. So I get it. I mean, it's shocking, right? For us, we would think, oh my gosh, no, but it's so much better. It's amazing.
You think it's a third world country, when you're not immersed into it and you don't understand. But I asked a doctor early on when I was in the due diligence process, and this was an administrator, a chairperson of a major hospital here, the San Vicente. And so this was a really renowned guy in and of his own right. But I asked him, I said, why is the hospital system here so great? And he said, well, one of the reasons is because of the violence we had in our history, because we were a war zone. And so we had more traumas than anybody in the world at that time. And so doctors flock here now still to train, because we have some of the best trauma surgeons in the world. And we had to keep building a lot of hospitals. And then and doctors kind of end up breeding doctors. It's a familial occupation a lot of times.
Very interesting point. So approximately how many people a month will go to BioXcellerator?
We're still what I would call boutique, in the sense that, we have a treatment that goes from Monday to Friday in most cases. Now, we do have a 3-day protocol and a 1-day protocol for some of our specific cases. A lot of time they're return patients or professional athletes that are just coming for a joint or something like that. But typically our patients come from Monday to Friday. So if we're seeing 20 patients a day, those same 20 patients are staying with us all week. So it's 20 patients a week, 20 patients a day.
Okay, so let's just round it up to 100 people a month.
Yep.
And what would be the number one thing, percentage-wise, that those 100 people come for?
Our number one is orthopedic injuries. So orthopedic, and then that gets a little bit more granular into spine and disc. And one of the things that we specialize in is the spine and disc treatment. So we have neurosurgeons here that actually inject into disc and facet. And then we also treat spinal cord injury. Underneath that, it's autoimmune disease and then neurological condition.
And how about just pure rejuvenation?
Almost every one of our patients ends up getting that, but
Right.
they're drawn to us with some type of pain.
Particular cause.
Yeah.
So, for example, in 2011, I ruptured C6, C7. The disc went 50% into my spinal column. And so, but I let it heal naturally against the advice of every doctor I saw. So now it's pretty sore. So if I were to come there, you could inject the stem cells into that, and odds are I would get some sort of relief.
Yeah, I don't know anything about your specific
Right.
case, and
Right.
as we already covered, I'm not the doctor. I have to give that disclaimer.
But that's one
absolutely,
treatment that I might be eligible for.
You're our typical patient, Mike. We
Yeah.
see guys like you every day, all day.
Yeah. And you also, I just watched you interview on another show, and you dropped a few names that people said you could drop. And one of them was Chuck Liddell, Jim McMahon, the former quarterback that has some brain issues. I heard you talk about that. I know a lot of UFC guys come here. I hear some royalty even comes in once in a while. So what about these, especially the fighters? What are they coming for?
Typically, the fighters find us for orthopedic issues also. I mean, these guys are, for one, they're using their bodies for their livelihood, their family's livelihood, but they use it at the highest level. So these are elite athletes. They're training maybe harder than their fight. Their training sometimes are harder than their fights. But so typically they're injured from some orthopedic injury. What I'll tell you is that after they come the first time, and I'm pointing to the knee because that seems to be a typical wrestlers or UFC fighters, major problems, flat in their hands and all sorts of stuff. But after they come to us the first time and they get the results that we typically get, it's not 100%, but they get good results with us. What they end up doing is coming back every single year for either their nagging injuries or no injuries, because some of them consider it to be a secret weapon to get through their camp, to heal quicker, to presumably be stronger and better in the ring.
And just for you guys watching, FYI, I think maybe 7-8 years ago, I had a torn meniscus in my knee, and this was before BioXcellerator, and I got stem cells in Costa Rica and healed the torn meniscus. So this does work.
For sure it does.
And I also heard you say that there's a female fighter that said that after doing stem cells a number of times, that going through camp, it's the first time she's able to go through camp before a fight without nagging injuries.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of female fighters. Our most notable is definitely Chris Cyborg. She's for one, she's a sweetheart of an individual. I mean, she's incredible, but she's also a badass in the ring. I think she's the only female fighter to have 4 belts in 4 different promotions. But yeah, she is one of those fighters that she did come to us for an injury, and then she's now been back maybe 4 or 5 times, each time before her fight.
So I'm going to ask you an unfair question that you may or may not know anything about, but I'm curious myself. What are exosomes and what role do they play in this?
So exosomes are an extracellular vesicle that are secreted by the stem cell. What you see a lot in the marketplace, especially in the United States right now, is that exosomes are being sold and injected for a whole host of reasons.
Right.
Some of which have medicinal benefit, and I'm not putting that down. There's I think
aren't they kind of like the messenger or the communicator?
They're partially a signaler. The problem is that a lot of what you see in the marketplace right now, they haven't been characterized. So you're kind of.
So what are they?
we would call them. We kind of say the docs a lot of times are spraying and praying. They're spraying it and they're praying that it helps you, and a lot of times it does. So a lot of times people are getting some type of medicinal benefit.
Yeah.
And the good news is it's not really going to hurt you. They have kind of been tested enough to know that they're safe. Now the efficacy part is to be determined. Not that they're not effective, but they're not being directed very well. The thing that you have to understand about stem cells and the relationship to exosomes is that if you're getting a good stem cell treatment, and there's a whole mishmash of what could be considered good to great, but if you're getting a treatment like BioXcellerator gives, where the cells are viable, you're getting the clean and the safe procedures administered in the most effective way, then those live cells, because they're viable, are secreting the right exosomes, the right exosomes for you.
Okay.
So your body is actually telling them, with your stem cells, which exosomes to secrete, not just whatever exosomes that are sold on the shelf.
Okay, let's talk about the cells. Where do they come from?
Our cells come from the umbilical cord. Now, we take them from a very specific piece of the umbilical cord called the wart and jelly piece. And so what we know that those are the most potent and pure place to find mesenchymal stem cells. You'll hear some scientists and doctors call it mesenchymal, depending on what part of the world or where you were trained. Mesenchymal stem cells, for us, the acronym is MSC. Mm-hmm. So if I say MSC, that's what I'm referring to. It used to be mesenchymal stem cells. Now it's kind of changed into medical signaling cells. And so partially to your point about the exosomes is what the science has found is that really these cells are signaling the rest of your body.
Yeah.
Your body is still the magic. We're just kind of helping accelerate it. But so we get it from the umbilical cord, not from adipose tissue or bone marrow.
What about placenta?
We don't. Now, there's really good cases for placenta and hematopoietic cells and all sorts of other different cells. That's not what we do. We use the MSCs because the MSCs, for one, they have three major properties that are very necessary for what we treat. One of them is immune modulation, so it can either upregulate or downregulate your immune system. This is very important for many reasons, longevity, but certainly for autoimmune disease. It also helps reduce inflammation, and then it also stimulates repair. So that's why we use the MSC. Plus, the MSC does not have what's called an HLA tail, which allows allogenic non-donor donor matches.
And the reason you're in Medellin or outside of the U.S. because they can't use the cord blood there. They can only take it from your own fat. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, the regulation is a little bit more nuanced to that. I bore your audience to death, but more or less, it's not quite legal yet. And we think that the FDA is just not really further defined and kept up with the fast-moving technology. Yeah. So the regulation they have is really made 30 years ago for bone marrow transplants.
Okay. And also, because there's a lot of controversy up there because of embryos. And would you use them? I mean, wasn't that the big issue way back in the George Bush time?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely still being played out in the media. And sometimes shame on them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not doing their research.
Exactly.
That nobody does that shit anymore. And no reputable scientists are administering embryonic stem cells.
Right. Every birth has an umbilical cord. Why not use it?
Yeah, that's medical waste.
Yeah.
You're either throwing it away or you're helping thousands of people. You choose.
And what's interesting, I was just in Miami and had dinner with a Colombian couple, and one of their child was born here, and they're storing those stem cells here. They're storing. Do they store the cord or just the cells, or how?
Probably just the tissue. Yeah,
Okay.
they probably just take a little biopsy of the tissue.
And I have a dear friend that has a skin, and you might not know this again, okay? So if any of these questions are unfair, just tell me, okay? But he has a serious blood cancer. And in researching for this show, it came across that, stem cells aren't recommended for cancer, but they might be recommended for blood cancers. You know anything about that or heard that?
Yeah, for sure. So there's something going on in the industry as a whole, in the sense that the stem cell in and of itself has many medicinal purposes. We have narrowed our focus to those things I talked about.
So you don't mess with that?
We, as a company, do not mess with that. We know that MSCs actually have some anti-cancer properties to them. So we think that they're safe. The truth is that science is still pretty new, and so the thought process is a little bit unknown. Okay, I mean, we're already in the Wild West, so to speak. So it's a little unknown, and it's not our specialty, so we don't treat cancer.
And let's say I'm one of those weird guys, and I want to say...
No, I know that's true. That's for sure. That's confirmed.
And I say to you, Eric, for some strange reason, I don't want my stem cells to come from a person that's had the COVID-19 vaccine. Can you do that? Yeah,
right now our company does that. I'll tell you that it's a little bit harder than what science has proven is a definitive. Let me put it that way. So we still think that we wouldn't know if somebody wanted to hide it from us or lie about it.
Because you couldn't look at the stem cells and say, oh yeah, COVID-19, yeah.
No. And science right now, the latest science is saying that does not transfer into a cell. Whether it's a spike protein or regardless, it doesn't transfer on the cellular level so far. Look, science evolves and it changes. What we do is we take it a step further, where we make it exclusion criteria for the donors that we deal with.
Okay.
So if they've had it, if it's in their medical records, or again, if they lie to us and they hide it from us, that they might slip by.
Yeah.
We can also, what we're finding is you can also test for the spike protein, which really isn't going to tell us if they had the vaccine or not.
Right.
Because there's many spike proteins, and
we're in unknown territory in the Wild West right now.
We do not want to administer people that have had the vaccine, so we think that we are as close to perfect in that category as we can be, and as science evolves, we'll continue to evolve also.
Okay, so someone donates you an umbilical cord, and now you have tissue, and you pull a cell out, and now they duplicate. At what stage is the first one good, second one good, the third one? What growth, and where does it become no good?
So I think what you're referring to is passages, right?
Yes,
the passages of
the growth.
So we call it culture expansion. So we'll take the wart and jelly piece of the mesenchymal, or the cell, and we'll extract the mesenchymal cells. We'll also discard any other cells, and we just focus on the perfect MSCs. So once we have the perfect MSCs, which we already know that the cord that we have accepted is going to produce the best MSCs, and then we take the most perfect ones out of those. We discard everything else, and then we do the culture expansion process, which is the manipulation and the multiplication, essentially. From there, we take it out to, depending on what we're treating, we take it out somewhere around 7 passages.
Okay.
And that's giving away a little bit of secret sauce, but it's important to know that what you're seeing a lot in the world, and especially in the United States, I'm an American, and so I see this all the time there. You see these clinics that are purchasing stem cells from a laboratory.
Yeah.
And the laboratory might be great.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from any specific laboratory, right?
Yeah.
We've tested a lot. We know a lot of the big players out there. But so this laboratory is a business, and they're in the business of selling stem cells. And like any business, you want to increase production and reduce cost, right?
Yeah, got it.
And so they increase production as far as you can go, because you can grow those cells.
How far?
You can grow them to 50, 100, 100,000 passages if you want.
Okay.
But
they lose their potency.
They lose their potency at a specific passage. And in some passages, less isn't always more. Sometimes getting to a further passage actually helps that stem cell express certain proteins that are good for
certain things.
For certain things, like immune modulation and that kind of thing. So what we do know through our research and through global research is that at certain passages are really good for certain things. Once you start getting past that, you lose viability, and you're really selling something that is not necessarily viable. So we see that happening a lot in the U.S.
So let's say I was going to do a treatment. Typically, how many stem cells would I take into my body?
It really depends on every individual. We develop very individualized and specific protocols for everybody, but is a general rule, around 1 million stem cells per kilo of body weight.
Oh, really?
More or less. That's giving you a really broad generalization, but that's for systemic IV. We have individual protocols for knee. We have individual protocols for ankles and face and hair, and everything is individualized.
So recently, maybe a year or so ago, I went to a Dave Asprey biohack thing, and I went to a seminar on stem cells, and there was a surgeon, I think, from Austin. And so they would take people's fat, grow their stem cells, and then inject it through all their joints, right? Mm-hmm. But it seems to me that, like, I'm 65 years old. My stem cells are 65 years old. It would seem to me that's not nearly as effective than these brand new ones.
Of course. Yeah, as you start to age, your stem cells. The good thing about the MSC is it's one of the cells in the body. The stem cell is that continually divides,
So I have them in my bloodstream.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Of course. I mean, it's the building block of life, but it's also when you get a paper cut and you see your skin scab, and then all of a sudden it heals. Your body is healing yourself. Yeah. Your stem cells are at work all day, every day.
Okay.
But what happens over time is that instead of dividing every 24 hours like they did when you were young, and you get into your 30s and 40s, now it's every 48 hours. And then you get into your 60s, now it's every 72 hours. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. If you
a lot of volume.
It's a ton of volume. It's an incredible loss of the ability to heal yourself and keep up with disease.
I'm sure this question is somewhat ridiculous, but it has to do with heart disease, because I got a little heart issue, but it's not clogged arteries or anything. It's more of the electrical being out of whack, right? Stem cells help anything that way?
Yeah, there was a really cool study that just came out, and it's been. I was just in the States last week, and it's been all over the news and social media, where there was a study, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to quote it because I don't remember exactly who did the study, but it was a cardiac study, and it was showing that it dramatically increased the ability for somebody to heal from heart disease.
All right, let me pay you now. I'll be in next week.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have to tell you this, but Medigene is big in cosmetic surgery.
Yeah. Huge.
Okay. And I would imagine that stem cells, so let's say I have a cosmetic surgery on my face or something, I would imagine topical stem cells would help to heal. correct or no?
Yeah, so there's some topical stuff out there. We don't necessarily dabble in that. There is some topical stuff out there. I would say that the stuff that really seems to have good efficacy are the patches. So it's a specific patch. It's not a bottle that you buy off the shelf that has some kind of topical. This goes into the same reason that I was starting to mention with these presumably good laboratories that are selling cells to a doctor that's across the city or across the state or across the country. Yeah. They lose viability within an hour.
When they travel.
When they travel. Once they're out of an activation protocol, they start dying within the hour.
So let's just say I buy 100 million stem cells in Panama. Someone's going to fly them here, and I'm going to put them in my body 4 hours later. How much have I lost?
It's not impossible to accomplish if you have a couple of things at work. For one, a good scientific protocol. A lot of times what you're seeing...
On the receiving end?
Oh, yeah. Okay. For sure. What you see a lot of times is you see these guys out there that they may be working with a good laboratory. And if you're talking about, Dr. Reardon in Panama, great people. I've been in their laboratory. Yeah. Neil was, gracious to invite us in. So we know that their stem cells are great. And they have probably a really good protocol to freeze the stem cells, it's okay. That's good.
So they're frozen, and then they remain frozen in the travel time.
They do if you have the right containers and you have the right scientific protocol. What we're seeing a lot of is on the receiving end, then you have no scientific prowess or equipment, and you just start
You just thaw them and throw them in someone.
They're dead. They're gone.
Oh, seriously?
In most cases, they're not viable at all.
So you have to
put them back into an activation protocol.
Oh, you have to reactivate them.
Yeah, of course. You want to have them be viable and live and thriving.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you see a lot of these guys that are like, they warm them. The protocol says warm it with your hands until it gets to room temperature. What room? You're in Medellin or you're in Phoenix? That room's different.
No kidding.
Well,
that's fascinating. Okay, the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, scalp and hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get a lot. So patients come to us with pain. They come to us with autoimmune disease or neurological conditions. And so that's why they're motivated to come all the way to Medellin for us. But what their companions end up doing, we'll have a professional NFL guy or professional fighter, but the wives or the companions, they come, they go, well, I'm here. Let's do face and hair. And we've seen some incredible results. So it's not what we set out to do as a company, but we look at global evidence and we know that it has efficacy. So we started doing that for the companions. And now after many years of these people coming back every year, we've got these remarkable results. So yeah, it works. Wow. Now, if you're not bald, if you're to the shiny part where you're bald and shiny and there's no more follicle, forget it.
Forget it. Yeah. Get a toupee.
Yeah.
like everybody on TV. Okay. So you introduced me to a man that was in a severe accident, quadriplegic, and has been here 3 or 4 times.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yes. So tell us his story and what results he's had.
Oh, yeah, good. So Dustin Bunch is, he's a sweetheart of a
beautiful
guy.
Man. Beautiful man.
He's just such a sweet human, and the people around him are too. And I think that should be said because that's a part of his healing journey. But so Dustin was he was a firefighter at one point, or in the fire industry, and then he has a lot of firefighter buddies.
And was diving into a lake or something.
He was at Lake Havasu in between Arizona, California, and he had been going there for 20 years. And so he had his boat, he had his family. They go to the same little cove every year, and he dove in. And this year the lake was really low, and so it's 4th of July weekend, and he immediately was paralyzed. And so he almost drowned, but he had all his firefighter buddies there, and then they pulled him out and they resuscitated him and they got him to the hospital. But he had been watching. He was a UFC fan, and he had been watching Matt Hughes' story. Okay. And Matt Hughes was a former UFC champion. He came to us for a neurological condition. He had many treatments for CTE and his neurological condition. But anyway, so he was aware of BioXcellerator. He called while they were in the hospital. He had his wife call. Wow. So we knew about his injury, 3 days after. Wow. And he had to be travel worthy, so he couldn't come to us that quickly. But I was in Medellin when he first came, and I was vaguely aware of his case. We see a lot of spinal cord injury patients. It's heartbreaking stories, every last one
terrible.
of them. Terrible. But I happen to be in the mall, which our clinic is, I affectionately call it in a medical tourism compound, right? Right. But so it's connected to this mall, so that's where we were. But so we were walking to the clinic, and I just said, "Hey, Dustin, what what is it? Tell me your story. And he told me everything I just told you. And I said, well, what are you looking to accomplish, from stem cell? What have you heard about it? And what have our doctors told you? And what are you expecting? And it was really just a part of conversation. And we may have got some of it on tape. I don't remember. But he said something to me that was really profound. And he said, Eric, I'm realistic. I know what's happened to me. Usually this is kind of a bedridden death sentence. And he said, I'm hoping that I can hold my little baby daughter that I just birthed a year or so ago. And he said, that would be success for me. Wow. But he couldn't move his hands at this point. He was in a chair that, people either had to push him or he was using a chin strap to move. And fast forward, probably 4 treatments or 3 or 4 treatments in a couple of years. And he's been coming back every year since. He's moving his arms, and he's out there doing social media right now, showing other quadriplegics and paraplegics how to get around their house. And he started this great charity to help others like him. But he's holding his daughter. Wow. He's potentially got another one on the way. He's eating by himself. Here's the thing that I've seen a lot with our SCI patients, spinal cord injury patients, is what we're able to do, and they might not be out running marathons again. That's probably never going to happen. But
it's still a miracle what's happened, though.
They have dignity now, because a lot of these guys come and they don't have control of their bowels or bladder.
Yes.
They also don't have good use with their hands, so they have 24/7 care.
Yep.
So now people are wiping them, going to the bathroom, feeding them. Every time they're thirsty, they have to ask somebody for a drink.
Right.
Now they have dignity.
I got to tell you, this man is so grateful for what he's experienced at BioXcellerator. So congratulations. I commend you for that.
The joy of my life being in this business.
And also, I heard you interviewed working with vets, PTSD. What goes on there?
It's not just PTSD. It's more concussion related. So we're kicking off a clinical trial for CTE specifically. And so these vets are typically misdiagnosed with solely PTSD. And sometimes it's guys that haven't seen combat, and it's guys that are kind of on the fringe where you're like, well, what is the PTSD? I don't understand. A lot of times it's misdiagnosed because it's concussions. It's multiple concussions. So whether it's out on the range just practicing with these big these big munitions, and then or people that are close to mortars, and God forbid it's people that are have IEDs and have been blown up. So it's more for CTE, and those are the guys that we're really trying to give back to right now.
So you mentioned clinical trials. You do clinical trials?
Absolutely.
For the Colombian government, for the U.S., or for the world, or who specifically?
It is for the world, because good clinics like ours also, we want to help as many people as possible, but we only take patients based on actual evidence.
Okay.
And so we're not the guys out there that are spraying and praying. And there's a lot of clinics that will say, oh yeah, we'll treat you for everything. Yeah, it works for everything. No, that's not. And it may, but we take global evidence, so we are also doing it for the world. To answer your question, we're doing it. We want the world to have that research, but then of course for us, these are people that are close to our hearts, the veterans, the spinal cord injury patients. These, we've developed these relationships and good success, so we know that we can give this to the world.
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking about Christopher Reeve and what he tried to do when he was still alive after his injury, and he tried to work with stem cells, but in the U.S. I mean, do you know much about that, or is that still around, his foundation?
Yeah, the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation is fantastic. They donated almost $30 million to the California government for stem cell research. So part of the reason that our industry has advanced is because of Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation.
Okay.
And they've actually pioneered a lot of the research and some of the science that we use now. They've pioneered it in California in these research universities, but you can't use it in the U.S.
That just drives me nuts.
So thank you, for funding the research, but we're actually helping people every day.
I think we probably shouldn't talk about this, but I think Big Pharma, AMA has such a big influence over there that they probably don't want it. They want to sell their products, which is understandable.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, I'm an American, but I told you earlier, I don't do medical treatment in the U.S. anymore.
Yeah.
And some of that's just the quality of care. Doctors are in and out. They have to see you within 7 minutes. If they're seeing you longer than 7 minutes, they're practicing.
Right, exactly.
Be upset.
Exactly.
Here, a doctor's going to spend an hour and a half.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's many reasons why I get treated here. But to your point, Big Pharma and big insurance. Big insurance is actually almost a bigger culprit than big pharma. Big insurance dictates to doctors how they treat their patient.
Yeah.
It's not the other way around. Doctors, even if they wanted to treat you a certain way,
Exactly.
they can't.
And interesting enough, I think it was right when the pandemic was starting. So it used to be like 1,500 codes a doctor would have to fill out to get reimbursed. Went to 15,000. So I'm a car dealer. So we used to do warranty and the manufacturer reimburses. You don't cross a T or dot an I, you don't get paid. So, I mean, they're making these poor doctors' life miserable. Like you just said, they can only spend 5 or 7 minutes with someone.
Yep.
And it's really tragic. It's not healthcare. It's just put a Band-Aid on a mortal wound and hope.
It's sick care, and we have great doctors. We have physicians that get into it for the right reason.
Beautiful people. They're beautiful people.
Amazing. They start out down the right path. I think a lot of the reason that you're seeing, doctors are becoming disingenuous or disenfranchised with the medical system.
Absolutely.
So they're going into regenerative medicine or not.
Last week's show, I'm interviewing a guy down here that was a neuroscientist and then made a lot of money in crypto. So now he's down here trading crypto because it's being a doctor's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
The world lost a great neurosurgeon, but gained another banker, I guess.
Yeah.
So I read Tony Robbins' book recently called Life Force, and he tells a story how he fell snowboarding and his whole shoulder was frozen and jammed. I think he went to Panama Reardon. But according to him, I mean, he was toast, and the only hope was surgery. He went and got stem cells. He's 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have not treated Tony yet. I emphasize that because I know he's going around looking at all the good clinics, and we happen to have a relationship with Dr. Shapiro, who's also in his book. And so she sends us patients, and she sends people to Reardon and then people to us. And we have different specialties.
Yeah. I just had dinner with a pretty famous doctor in Miami when I was there that helped him when he had that mercury poisoning too. So, so it's a crazy world. So also, I don't think you were there, but I think Joe Rogan mentioned BioXcellerator on his show. Is that true?
Oh yeah, he's mentioned us. Grace. We're very grateful for him mentioning us. I think 11 or 12 times at this point he's mentioned us.
He's got a big audience.
Yeah. Our phone rings when he mentions us. So thanks, Joe.
What about dangers or side effects or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a medical procedure, and it's not to be messed around with. And so this is, another thing that I would caution people in the United States when they're just purchasing things from clinics that are not providing you a lot of information. It's medicine, and medicine can be dangerous. So really, the good news is that the side effects are pretty minor. Meaning, a lot of times what we see is flu-like symptoms. So a lot of times, and this happens to me when I get a systemic IV, and I
you get a little fever or something.
Yeah, I get a fever. I feel kind of lethargic for like 24 hours, and I just want to go to sleep and sleep it off. And that's what happens to me. I will tell you though, what happens to our professional athletes, and especially the most beat up orthopedic injuries, and we see this in our professional wrestlers and WWE guys and everybody, NFL. The inflammation that's caused by the injection of stem cells is not to be messed around with. It hurts. And you're going to spend 24, 48 hours of some real pain. It feels like your knee's going to blow up if you get your knee injected. Oh. So, it is a procedure, but it's an outpatient. It's worth it. Minimally invasive.
Most cases is worth it.
Yeah, for sure. No pain, no gain, right?
I also know that you do a lot to prepare the body and the patient before the stem cells. What do you do there? Yeah,
this is another essential key component that we think to some of the success that we've had, and some I would implore other clinics to really look at. But yeah, we take a real deep dive into the system in and of itself, and so we take a more integrative approach. So we try to reduce inflammation. We do that through nutraceuticals and bioregulatory IVs. Hyperbaric chamber, red light therapy, cryotherapy. A lot of alternatives are stacked onto what we do for stem cell. We're the experts in stem cell, but we also have all these alternatives that are supportive therapies for stem cell.
And for you guys watching and listening, at Mountains of Hope, our transformational health retreat center here, we do a deep dive detox, and we have a relationship with BioXcellerator. So, if you want to book with us, we can prepare you. He'll further prepare you. It's just going to work better. The cleaner the body, the less toxicity, the better these stem cells are going to work.
That's the theory, yep.
All right, we got 1 minute left. What do you want to tell them about BioXcellerator and why they should come down here?
Shoot. Well, what did we not cover? I mean, I think you asked such a good question.
So the website, call, make an appointment, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do is we make it easy for you in the sense that we have patient advocates that their job every day is to advocate for you. So whether it's transferring medical records or getting images or getting in contact with our doctors and asking the questions that you're inevitably going to have, reach out to us to get a patient advocate assigned to you. So BioXcellerator.com is the website. Please visit our social channels. Our YouTube channel is incredible if you want to see what our patients are saying about us.
Yeah.
Recovery, results, everything in between, the experience. Look at our YouTube channel or any social media channel.
Well, I'm super grateful for you taking the time to come over here. I hope to see you soon at the clinic when I get my stem cells, and thank you very much.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me. It's good seeing you again.
My pleasure. Hey, folks, coming up next, we'll have our Mountains of Hope health coach here with another great bit. Thank you. Okay, you guys, now is my favorite time of the show, and that's where we talk about our amazing transformational health retreat center here in Medellin, Colombia. And if you'd like to know more and how you can radically transform every area of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I invite you to go to mountainsofhope.com and check it out. I really believe there's nothing like this place in the entire world. And the other favorite part is we bring in one of the lovely health coaches. Kelly's with us today. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Mike.
And Kelly, what would you like to talk about today?
Mike, I would like to talk about something that we are hearing a lot lately in regards to functional medicine, integrative medicine. You correct me.
Integrative.
Yeah. And the conventional medicine. And what are the things that we actually at Mountains of Hope believe and how we can integrate all of this into the process that every person takes, whether they go to Mountains of Hope or wherever you live. How do you take responsibility for your health without just leaving it into the doctor's hand?
Yeah. And so I'll give you an example of what Kelly's talking about. So when I was 35 or so, I went to a doctor. My blood pressure was high. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. Just take these pills for the rest of your life. Okay, well, I'm a 35-year-old kid. Okay, yeah, whatever you say. You got the white coat and the stethoscope. A functional doctor would have said, whoa, dude, why do you have hypertension at 35? Is that correct?
Yeah, so the idea of the functional and the integrative medicine is to actually go to the cause. I mean, the idea is normally, and I respect conventional medicine. There are many benefits that we actually get from them. I'm actually married to a doctor, so I actually love doctors. But the idea with functional, with the thinking and the mindset is trying to find the cause, because not every symptom has the same cause. Your hypertension could be, for example, for lack of sleep. Another person's could be something genetic. Another person could be the relationships. Another person could be the food. Another could be all of them.
Right.
So it's trying to go, not just, if you imagine a tree, it's not just go to the fruit, but go to the roots, to where did it came from.
Yeah.
And then from there, we can actually, if it's like a really chronic, we can treat with conventional medicine. And then whilst we work on the root to actually solve it.
And let me comment a little bit about conventional medicine versus functional. Because in the United States, it's 98% conventional because that's what insurance, they'll only pay for that.
Exactly.
They won't pay for the other stuff that's really good for us, right? So, for example, the World Health Organization in 2002 did a survey, and they judged every country in the world the quality of their health care. And Colombia was 22nd. This was 20 years ago. Colombia was 22nd. United States was 37th. Someone told me the other day that they just did a new study 20 years later, and America is now like 54th and Colombia is like 17th. Why? Because when I go to a doctor here, they literally, it's 20, 30-minute consult. Okay, I go to a doctor in America, it's 5 minutes of writing a prescription. You know, check my vitals and say, how you doing? And here's a prescription. Elaborate on that.
So the thing is, the system for the health system in every country is no, let's say it's not profitable to have a patient that actually have to take 1 hour to actually find out how is the person, what are the things happening. For example, with my husband, it happens like that. He works for the public, like health, but he also has private consultancy. The private takes 1 hour to 1 hour and 15 minutes, minimum 45 minutes. Here, 15 minutes and send the person home. So for him was at the beginning like, my goodness, how do I help these other people who don't have access to functional? So what he has done is like taking every 15 minutes to kind of do a faster speed, but how are you? Just that question, how are you? How are relationships? So in focusing, let's talk about your food, and then we'll give you the prescription. But when you take more time to understand the person's environment, the person's health, okay, it's not just about the pill. It's about, oh, I can see that because of your marriage situations. It's not a psychologist, but it's like, I can see because of that, your cortisol is actually really high. That's affecting us this part here. So let's send you to a health coach, or let's send you to a psychologist. But also at the same time, let's treat these other parts of your health. So obviously it's because of profit, I would say, because paying for doctors to have 1 hour patient versus 15 minutes, if you think about it, the budget for the country, that's when people kind of, how do I actually balance these things?
You know, if I was in charge, the way it would work?
How it would work?
You're my patient, I'm your doctor. When you're healthy, you pay me a monthly fee. When you're sick, I treat you for free because obviously I missed something, I did something wrong. Okay, so that would be health care instead of sickness care, which I feel like we get a lot of in America.
Yeah, the thing is that I believe that because of the companies, we know that even the pharmaceuticals are also related with the faculties that actually form the doctors, and all of this that has been happening in the last years. But one of the things that I also say, because I'm actually the health coach for those patients, is you also need to take responsibility for yourself. This is not all the hands of the doctor, and that's part of the functional medicine. It's about you taking responsibility of your health.
Yeah.
If the person says, oh, this is only this pill, doctor, what about my emotions? Doctor, what about this? If people start to take the responsibility of their own health, I'm not saying go to Google and find what is the thing that you have to take. Keep going to the doctor, but also you find out how does sleep affect, how my relationships affect, how my food affects this issue. Learn about the thing that is happening in your body, and so you can also go to your doctor. Don't try to be a doctor, but whatever you go and they say do, go and do it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing that I think would be much better for you parents out there with young children. My parents never taught me about proper nutrition. They didn't know about proper nutrition. In fact, doctors in America, when they go 4 or 5 years of medical school, they get 3 hours of nutrition. So we never teach our kids about nutrition. You know, my mom used to give me a box of Jell-O pudding. It's a box. I don't think food grows in a box. But in this box was a bunch of stuff, powder, and then I would put it in water or milk, and I would blend it, and then I would eat pudding. Okay, and I thought that was good for me. And the other thing as a kid, I always thought, well, no matter what goes wrong, the doctor's going to fix it because I'm watching all these TV shows and everybody gets sick. They go to, and so I think if we educated these kids early, you got to be responsible for what goes into your body, what you eat and what you drink, what you think. If we would start educating them sooner, then they would realize, hey, if there's an issue, it's on me and I got to look at my nutrition. I got to look at my exercise. I got to look at my sleep. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, and I believe, and that's part of taking that responsibility and educating. Simple things like the labels of our food.
Yeah.
If we actually turn around whatever it says on the front, don't even look at it, turn it, and check what are the first 3 ingredients. Oh my goodness, I have no idea. Well, the first one is sugar. The second one is sugar.
Or no, they changed the name now. Now it's sucrose. They come up with people know
60 different names for sugar.
They now know sugar is bad for us, and now they got all the 6 like you said.
Yeah, literally. So that is part of it. When we go to integrative and functional medicine, that is part of it. We teach people how to actually be checking those labels. So we know that it's not everything about supplements. It's not everything about lifestyle. It's not everything about pills. Is about how do I integrate all of these and see that person as a whole body. It's not just, if you have, for example, if a person has a kidney issue, it's not just talking about the kidney, it's talking about your lifestyle, your food, the other metabolic things that are happening around your kidney. How do we actually treat you as a whole? And that's also part of the integrative medicine.
So unfortunately, it's kind of 2-tiered, people with money and people without money. The people without money, they're stuck with the conventional medicine. So for you folks, at least try to strengthen your immune system if you're going some sort of treatment process like cancer or something like that. You need to be responsible for your immune system and how you think and your emotional system. At least you can be responsible for that. For you people with money, and if let's say you have money and you're going through cancer treatment, then you want that integrative, because what they're going to do is they're going to work with that conventional medicine, that Western medicine, the integrative doctor, and say, okay, let's try to offset this damage with this, right? And then, of course, in my opinion, the best is functional. how did this happen to you? What is the real cause? And let's address that instead of putting Band-Aids on mortal wounds.
And I will also say, Mike, I have seen people who actually, I even will have seen people with a lot of money not doing it. But the people who actually don't have it, they make the way to afford it. But the other thing is education. There are many functional doctors who have written books, who have podcasts, who actually even sometimes sponsor those people. I know because, for example, we do it with people who actually, I really want to commit with this. What do I have to do? And you see them actually taking, like, I will take these, like, on heart. Yeah. So there are many ways to actually also make it happen. And amazing doctors writing books, doing podcasts that are for free. That is a start also with, if you want to kind of embrace this different approach.
Thank you, Kelly. Another great segment. So for you guys out there, listen, if you can make it to Mountains of Hope and come to one of our amazing retreats, we have functional doctors that work there, and we're going to try to help you identify the causes of what's going on with you. At least when you get home, you know how to go about doing it. So we really encourage you to check out Mountains of Hope, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you for listening to The Power of Your Voice with Mike Murphy. This podcast is brought to you by Mike Murphy Unfiltered, The Creation Frequency, Mountains of Hope, and the Love from Margot Foundation. These sponsors are dedicated to helping you unleash your full potential and live a life of joy and abundance. If you enjoyed this episode, please visit our website at mikemurphyunfiltered.com and subscribe to our podcast.